From the moment you open your eyes to greet a new day, a silent battle has already begun. No one else but your own mind is the first to speak. It doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It simply pulls you, quietly, into familiar thought patterns, invisible worries, loops of doubt, procrastination, and old fears. And the most frightening part? You often don't even realize it, because the mind, when left unchecked, operates on old inertia. It doesn't distinguish right from wrong. It just repeats what it's used to. And if what it's used to is anxiety, hesitation, or small thinking, then that becomes the silent trap you step into every day without even knowing it. Most people don't live with intention. They live by reaction. They allow their stream of thoughts to carry them wherever it wants, thinking whatever comes, constantly busy but lacking direction. The mind pulls them along without needing their consent. That's why so many people feel exhausted even when they haven't done anything strenuous. It's not the body that's tired. It's the mind, overloaded with what doesn't matter. They worry about things beyond their control. They're distracted by what doesn't move them forward. They lose themselves in an overstimulated world, never realizing they have the power to choose a different path for the mind, starting right now. The first secret I want you to deeply remember is this. Your mind is not you. It's a tool, extremely powerful, but also incredibly easy to misuse. And if you don't use it with awareness, it becomes a silent saboteur, one that robs you of focus, perseverance, confidence, and eventually even the dreams you once longed for. But that very same mind, if guided properly, can become the sharpest tool you possess, leading you to every result you've ever desired. It all comes down to what you choose to do with it. Let it lead you, or stand up and begin to lead it. There's one important truth you need to face, not in theory, but in your daily experience. Every thought that doesn't come from you needs to be examined, because most automatic thoughts don't come from wisdom, but from old neural habits formed from the past, the environment, negative experiences, and fears you've once lived through. This isn't a bad thing if you're aware of it, but if you let it run without your control, sooner or later you'll veer off course from the life you truly want. That's when your mind, rather than becoming a tool, turns into your most dangerous betrayer. I'm not telling you this to make you anxious. I'm telling you this to wake you up. Because the moment you realize that your mind can be reprogrammed, you've opened the first door to real freedom. Not freedom from work or circumstance, but freedom from thoughts that do not serve you. And only when you have that kind of inner freedom can you begin to live a life that you truly own instead of being led. You need to see clearly. Every thought you allow to repeat is a signal you send to your brain. If you let negative thoughts repeat long enough, your brain will treat them as default. If you constantly allow your willpower to be shaken by little voices saying, "You're not good enough, you can't do it," then you're programming yourself with doubt instead of belief. But under the same principle, if you learn how to cut off weak thoughts the moment they arise, if you know how to replace them with thoughts of intention, strength, and direction, then your mind begins to transform. The mind, just like a muscle, doesn't grow strong on its own. It becomes strong when you train it every day. And training the mind doesn't mean forcing it to think positively in an artificial way. It means teaching it to clearly discern which thoughts should be kept and which ones must be discarded immediately. It's about learning to observe without identifying, learning to interrupt thought patterns when they veer away from your values and goals, learning to replace them swiftly, decisively, and intentionally. You might ask me, when is the best time to start mastering the mind? The answer is very simple. Right now. Not when you're ready, not when you have time, not when everything is more favorable. Because if you keep waiting, your mind will keep running on its old patterns and the opportunities in your life will keep slipping away like sand through your fingers. You don't need to change your entire life in a day, but you do need to start with one crucial change. Choose what you allow your mind to believe in. Every morning you can begin with a simple act. Pause for a few seconds. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's the first thought in my mind? Is it taking me where I want to go? And if the answer is no, you know what you must do. Don't agree with it. Don't believe it. Don't let it decide your day. That's how you begin building inner strength. Not from anyone pushing you, not from the world validating you, just from you, making one decision. I will not let my mind control me. I will master it. And when you begin to do that consistently, day after day, something miraculous will happen. New thoughts will start to form. Awareness will become instinct. You'll no longer live in reaction mode, but in a state of clarity and deliberate action. And when the mind becomes clear, every choice in your life becomes clearer too. This is not a loud revolution. It is a quiet yet profound and sustainable transformation. We can't choose every circumstance in life, but we can always choose which thoughts lead us. And in the moment you make that choice, you are no longer a victim of the mind. You are the one at the wheel. Not everyone fails due to a lack of ability. In fact, most failures don't come from not being smart enough, not skilled enough, or not having enough time. Failure begins with something far more silent, an uncontrolled mind, a misguided mindset, and old thoughts repeating day after day without anyone pausing to ask, is this thought leading me to where I want to go? If you're moving toward your goals, but your mind is pointed toward doubt, distraction, and self-sabotage, then you're fighting against yourself before the world even has a chance to speak. The root of success doesn't lie in how much talent you have. It lies in how you manage your thinking, because the mind, if untrained, will repeat exactly what it was programmed to do yesterday. And if yesterday you lived in fear, procrastination, and self-limitation, then today you will keep living in that same loop, no matter how many books you read or goals you set. The mind doesn't care about your dreams. It only follows habit. And if you don't step in to take back control, then you are silently allowing yourself to live beneath your potential every single day. Most people don't even know what they're thinking. That may sound strange, but it's true. Their minds jump from one thought to another, worrying about things not worth worrying about, overreacting to unimportant matters, imagining scenarios that never happen. And then they feel exhausted. They say they lack motivation. They think they need more knowledge, more time, more advice. But what they really need is to learn how to take control of the first thought that arises in their mind each morning and every thought that follows. You cannot live a different life if you keep thinking the same way. And you cannot expect to act correctly if your head is full of mental garbage. There are two types of thoughts. Ones that move you forward, making you clearer, calmer, more decisive, and ones that drag you down, causing procrastination, doubt, fear, and repeated failure. Every thought you choose to keep or discard is silently building the future you. And the unfortunate truth is that most people don't make any choice at all. They let the mind decide for them. And that's why they never change. Real success doesn't come from being smarter than others. It comes from having clearer thinking than others. Successful people don't have fewer worries. They just don't allow themselves to be controlled by useless thoughts. They don't believe everything their mind throws at them. They don't let old reflexes lead the way. They deliberately shape their thinking every day by identifying thoughts that don't serve them and replacing them with thoughts that have direction. They act from a place of clarity, not fleeting emotions. So how do you start rebuilding your mindset? First, by becoming aware of your own thoughts. Notice what you're thinking throughout the day. Which thoughts keep showing up again and again? Are they leading you forward or pulling you backward? If a thought makes you feel discouraged, tired, or small, it has no right to exist. You don't have to argue with it. You just have to stop feeding it. Replace it with the right question. Where is this thought taking me? Can I choose differently? And you always can choose differently. After awakening, you need to structure your thinking. Don't let the mind run wild all day. Write down what your priorities are. Write down your biggest goal. Write down the core values you live by. When the mind starts drifting, you need an anchor to return to. That anchor is what you've made clear beforehand. Because if you don't guide it, it will chase after any stimulus it sees. A negative news story, a judgmental comment, an old memory. You must retrain the mind to know what truly matters. You also need to keep your mind clean, just like you keep your body free from toxins. Don't let mediocre content, negative people, or chaotic thought streams invade your mental space. Be selective about what you allow into your brain. Just as you wouldn't eat garbage, you shouldn't think garbage. The mind must be nourished with the right content, the right questions, the right environment. Otherwise, it will weaken day by day. And most importantly, train your focus. No one is born with the ability to maintain right thinking all day long. It must be practiced. Start with 5 minutes a day. Sit down and ask, what am I thinking? Is it useful? Does it need to be replaced? Every time you stop and redirect your thinking, you are rebuilding your neural system. And after enough repetitions, this becomes your new nature. You no longer have to force yourself to focus. You become someone who naturally focuses. It is a silent kind of power, but very real. If you've read this far, I believe you're searching for something deeper, something more real. Perhaps you've heard enough superficial advice. Perhaps you've tried many methods, but always ended up back at the starting point. But I also believe this. Right now, you can truly begin, not with a grand promise, but with a simple commitment to think deliberately from this moment onward. If you're ready to stop thinking like your old self and start acting like the person you can become, leave a comment that says, I'm ready to change, or just the number 1 to mark the moment you sat down, faced yourself, and made a decision. I thank you for being here. In a chaotic world, your mindful presence is something to be treasured. And if you continue, I promise, this journey will not only change how you think, but how you live. The mind doesn't become strong just because of a single awakening. It doesn't change simply because you listened to a great lesson or read an inspiring book. Just like the body doesn't become solid after one workout, the mind needs to be trained, and especially trained every single day. The difference between someone who thinks clearly and someone constantly pulled into inner conflict doesn't lie in intelligence, but in who persistently trains their thinking in the direction they choose, not once, but every day, many times. You can't simply hope that your mind will instinctively become sharp and effective. It won't do that on its own. If you don't take control of it, the mind will operate in the easiest way possible, reacting emotionally, following old habits, chasing external noise. And in that state, you'll think you're making choices, when in truth, you're just reacting to something external. That's not thinking, that's passive programming. And only when you begin to retrain your mind deliberately do you earn the right to demand a life that is clearer, more effective, and more progressive. The first step in this training process is becoming aware of every thought that arises. You don't need to control everything in your head, but you must know what you're thinking and how it's affecting you. A seemingly harmless thought can still quietly drain your energy if repeated long enough. Thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready yet, I need more time. They may sound reasonable, but in reality, they're cleverly disguised signals of procrastination. The mind is very skilled at rationalizing fear. And if you don't recognize this game, you'll be deceived by your own mind without ever knowing it. Once you've observed your thinking, the next step is to build a structure for it. A mind without a guiding framework will drift. You need to give it a list of what to focus on, what to remember, what to return to whenever it's distracted. Write down your goals, your values, your top priorities for the day. And when you realize you're being pulled away by trivial things, a criticism, a negative emotion, a vague worry, you must interrupt that reflex and return to the structure you've chosen. This isn't rigid discipline. It's clear direction. You must also understand a crucial point. The mind remembers through repetition. You can't just think correctly once and expect it to become your default. You must repeat the right thoughts many times until they form new neural pathways in the brain. When you tell yourself, I am becoming stronger every day, and you actually act that way, your brain registers it. When you reject a weak thought and replace it with a directional question, You're rebuilding your nervous system. And if you do this consistently, your brain will rewire its mental framework, and the new pattern will become natural. Thinking habits are just like any other habits. They require practice. And like brushing your teeth, no one teaches you once and leaves it there. You must practice it as an essential part of daily life. You can start with 5 minutes each morning. Sit still, breathe slowly, and ask yourself, what's the most important thing for me today? Or, is this thought moving me forward or pulling me back? Start simple, but do it consistently. Because strength doesn't come from what you do once. Strength comes from what you do regularly. You also need to learn not to let your mind wander without permission. Many people say they feel drained and don't know why. The answer is this: their mind constantly jumps from one thought to another without pause. They're dragged by comparison, by social media, by endless conversations with no resolution. And then they sigh, feeling exhausted, without realizing the cause lies in the constant leak of mental energy throughout the day. If you want to become stronger, you need to learn how to protect your mental space, just like you lock your door before going to sleep. Another point that few people emphasize: correct thinking is not unconditional positivity. It's not about saying everything will be fine without doing anything. Right thinking means focusing on what truly matters, no matter how difficult the circumstances. When you feel anxious, you don't have to force yourself to be cheerful. You just need to ask, is this thought useful? Is it helping me solve the problem? Can I choose a thought that's more realistic, more effective? That's what it means to be proactive, and that's what makes you stronger every day. Training the mind also involves eliminating the invisible toxins you feed it daily. The mind, like the body, responds to what you consume. If you constantly expose yourself to drama, negative news, or critical conversations, whether you want to or not, your mind is still being affected, and over time, it will treat negative reactions as the default. So choose your input carefully. Not because you're weak and need to avoid things, but because you're conscious enough to know the mind needs a clean environment to grow. Finally, remember this: the mind is not an enemy to be punished. It's a machine to be reprogrammed. And that process requires consistency, not self-judgment every time you fail. There will be days when you lose control, days when you react instead of staying aware. But every time you notice it and return to your chosen thinking structure, that is a step forward. You don't need to be perfect. You just need not to give up, because the difference doesn't come from grand actions. It comes from small choices repeated every day, unseen, unpraised, but known deeply by you, that you are training your mind to live differently. In a world where everything is racing to capture your attention, from phone notifications, emails, news, social media, to the wandering thoughts in your own head, focus is no longer a luxury. It is a survival skill. And like any other skill, it can be trained or lost, depending on how you deal with daily distractions. Focus does not appear naturally. It is not a gift reserved for a lucky few. It is the product of mental discipline, of deliberate choices made among thousands of things that seem important but bring no real value to you. What confuses many people is this: they're busy all day long, yet don't produce any real results. They work constantly, but don't feel like they're progressing. They move, but they don't go anywhere. The reason is not a lack of action, but a lack of focused presence. Every action that lacks the guidance of a focused mind is merely an energy drain. And when energy is drained without producing results, frustration is inevitable. You think you're lazy, but the truth is you're being torn apart by too many unrelated fragments. It's not that you're not putting in enough effort. It's that your effort is scattered. Focus is the ability to keep your mind exactly where it needs to be, despite the noise around you. But sadly, the world today doesn't teach us how to stay focused. It teaches us how to react quickly, how to switch scenes constantly, how to track 10 things at once without going deep into any of them. And that's why those who know how to focus have such a tremendous advantage. While others are chasing noise, they're quietly creating. While others jump from idea to idea, they stay committed to one thing and see it through to the end. The issue isn't whether you get distracted. Distraction is inevitable. It's always there. The important question is, do you realize when you're being pulled away from your center? And can you return in time before your energy is completely drained? Focus isn't a fixed state. It's the repeated returning to what matters most every time you veer off track. That's why truly successful people aren't the ones who never get distracted. They're just the ones who recognize distraction faster and return to their goal more quickly. To do that, you need to start by clearly identifying what truly matters. Don't confuse urgent with valuable. Many things may seem urgent but add nothing to your future. Meanwhile, the things that matter most are often quiet, don't shout for your attention, and don't compete for you. But if you don't consciously choose, your mind will always default to whatever is louder, shinier, and easier. Focus requires you to say no to many things that seem reasonable. It's not easy, but it's the price of clarity. Take a look at your day. How many times have you stopped working just to check your phone without thinking? How many times were you focused before a random thought pulled you into something unrelated? Each time this happens, you don't just lose time, you lose momentum. And the scary part is, you don't even realize it. Because distraction doesn't arrive with a loud noise. It comes like an undercurrent, slow but steady, and by the time you notice, it's too late because you've lost the strength to return. The only way to change this is to build the habit of detecting distraction early. As soon as you sense yourself being pulled away from your center, pause. Don't react, don't rush to fix it. Just observe yourself and recognize, where am I being pulled? And then choose to return. The faster you return, the more power you preserve. Because focus isn't absolute rigidity. It is the art of returning. You also need to create a system to protect your focus. A clean workspace, uninterrupted time blocks, notifications turned off, social media not open by default. These aren't tricks. They are the structure that protects your mental energy. And more important than all of that, you need a clear reason to stay focused. If you don't know why what you're doing matters, you'll abandon it the moment something more appealing appears. Focus is the child of clear goals. You can't sustain focus if you don't know what you're aiming for. So take 5 minutes each day to write down what is the most important thing today, and keep it close to you. Every time something tries to pull you away, look at that line and ask yourself, is what I'm doing helping me achieve this? If not, stop. It's that simple. But you need to repeat that dozens of times each day. That's how you rebuild your ability to focus, not through iron will, but through recognition, returning, and maintaining. There's one truth you need to remember. Those who go far aren't the ones who do more things. They are the ones who do the right thing, longer, deeper, and without interruption. One person who focuses for 1 hour a day can create results 10 times greater than someone who is distracted all day long, not because they're more talented, but because they are more fully present. In an era where distraction is the default, focus is a superpower. Don't wait until you feel ready to start training your focus. Start in the middle of the chaos. It is precisely within the chaos that you truly understand the value of a stable mind. And you will see, as long as you can hold one clear point in your mind, the outside world loses its power to drown you. You will still hear the noise, still feel the pressure, but you will no longer be controlled by it. You won't chase it, you'll observe it, then you'll return to the one thing that truly matters. You cannot master your life if you don't master your thoughts. And you cannot master your thoughts if you allow them to drift unconsciously from one moment to the next. The mind, if not guided, will wander. It won't stay still. It will run to the past, jump into the future, and loop around worries, memories, and old reflexes. That's its nature. But the problem is this. If you don't step in to take the lead, you will no longer be the one directing your thoughts, but rather someone being pulled without direction. And this drifting doesn't happen in major life decisions. It begins in the smallest moments, when you allow a negative thought to repeat without challenging it, when you accept a false assumption just because it's familiar, when you let the surrounding environment decide for you what's worth worrying about, what's important, and what deserves a reaction. Every time you surrender your right to choose your thoughts, you're not just losing a minute, you're losing your sense of direction in life. The mind operates continuously. It has no pause button. But what you can do is actively choose what is allowed to repeat. Because a thought, no matter how powerful, cannot survive if you don't feed it with your attention. Every thought you pay attention to, dwell on, repeat in your mind, is a brick you lay into the foundation of your thinking. And if you repeat something long enough, it becomes default. No need to review, no need to question. It will run automatically like a background program. That's why so many people still react the same old way, even when they know it no longer serves them. They're not bad people, they've just forgotten they can choose again. To change that, you must begin with a simple yet vital principle. No thought gets to enter and define you unless you have permitted it. Think of it as managing an inner space where only thoughts that are valuable, accurate, and serve your growth are allowed to stay. And the thoughts that come from fear, prejudice, old memories, or negative environments must be examined, must be rejected if needed, must be replaced if they no longer serve. Because you can't control everything that happens out there, but you can absolutely control what you allow to repeat in your mind. To do that, you need to build the habit of intentionally questioning yourself. When a thought arises, especially those old, familiar, draining ones, pause. Don't believe it right away. Don't identify with it immediately. Just ask, is this thought helping me move toward where I want to go, or is it keeping me stuck in where I once was? That question, though simple, can ignite a chain of transformation. Because the moment you pause to ask, you've already stepped outside the unconscious loop of old mental habits, and from that place you can begin to rebuild your direction. This is not theoretical, it's a practical action that happens dozens, even hundreds of times each day. The mind doesn't need you to do something grand, it just needs you to return enough times to the right path until that becomes a natural part of your response. Every time you catch yourself drifting, comparing, getting caught in emotion, recalling what no longer matters, and you choose to return to awareness, you're building an entirely new mental system. No need to wait for life to change. You just need to own the present moment, minute by minute, hour by hour. Another essential element to stop drifting is having a clear direction for your mind to return to. You can't ask your brain to stop worrying if you don't give it something else to focus on. You can't stop yourself from reacting if you don't know what deeper pursuit you're aligned with. That's why everyone needs a personal mental compass. What am I moving toward? Who do I want to become? Which thoughts reflect that person and which do not? Once you've defined those standards, you'll have a mental filter to help you sort your thoughts and actions each day. Imagine your mind as a vast forest. If you don't lead the way, it will grow wild. But if you give it direction, you can carve out clear paths, places where thoughts no longer get lost, where actions are no longer pulled by reflex. And the best part is, you don't have to clear the whole forest in one day. You just need to walk one path long enough, often enough, and that very path will become a firm trail in your brain. That's how neural pathways are formed. That's how you shift from drifting to self-leadership. The world out there will never stop trying to distract you. There will always be things that are more urgent, louder, and easier to do, but you don't have to react to all of it. You just need to know what's worth thinking about, and once you begin living by that principle, you'll feel a distinct shift, not because circumstances have changed, but because you are finally living in alignment with the mental direction you've chosen. And finally, remember this, your thinking is the most sacred space you own. Don't let anything, no matter how small or familiar, take up residence there if it doesn't nourish you. You may not control what others say, what has happened, or what the outside world sends your way, but you always have the right to choose which thoughts get to stay. And that choice, repeated long enough,